One of the more intriguing and interesting and unique storylines happening in the NFL right now, if you ask me, is the Detroit Lions figuring out a way to win 6 of 7 games, put themselves right in position to make the playoffs with 3 very winnable games to finish out the 2022 season. And tucked inside of that, nice and neat, is the story of James Houston IV, coming out of Jackson State. But prior to that, he was an SEC guy, full scholarship at Florida, went to Jackson State to be with Dion and finish out his college eligibility, and it served him well. He has 5 sacks in 4 NFL games, didn't become active until week 12 against the Bills. 5 sacks, 4 games, 8 quarterback hits in about 60 total snaps on defense, if I did my math right. Pretty unbelievable if you ask me. Having an impact as an edge rusher. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Most of the edge rushes that I see that are successful are speed rushes, but his height and his athletic ability and his closing speed really works to his advantage. Have him listed at 6'1", 230. A couple of places I feel like he looks a little thicker than 230, 235, 238, 240, but the height is definitely accurate, and I think that works to his advantage. Most edge rushers, even Aiden Hutchinson on the other side from him are 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". I feel like this is working to his advantage. And then to talk about the Lions just briefly, if you now look at their record at 7-7 and then go back and look at some of their losses, they lost to the Eagles by 3 in week 1 in a game that was very schizophrenic, obviously. They also lost to the Vikings by 4 in week 3. Then the Seahawks by 3 in week 3. So you're talking about 3 games that they lost to teams with winning records, or in the case of the Seahawks, they had a winning record for most of the year, that they lost by less than 5 points. Very winnable game situations. Only lost to the Dolphins at home by 4 in week 8. And then after that, they've taken off. The run defense, absent or taking out the 258 they gave up to the Bears in week 10, the rush defense has been unbelievable. I think James Houston IV is not the biggest piece of the rush defense. I think they bring him in as a pass rusher in most situations, and they're getting a lot of benefit out of that. For him being a 6th-round pick, even if he doesn't get another sack this year, they've gotten all their money's worth. Let's take a look at some of the film, and you guys can take a look for yourselves. Now, look, I don't have a lot of failed edge rushes in here, but look, in the first game he played here against the Bills, he's only on the field for 5 snaps and gets 2 sacks, and I think a forced fumble. I could be wrong. The height, if you ask me, is allowing him to play at a pad level, even when he's chipped by a running back, is allowing him to play at a pad level. It's the dip that constantly seems to win at the end for him. Now, that's not the initial move here on this tackle, but the dip is clearly what allows him to clear or get past the right tackle. You'll get the end zone angle here in a moment so you can see for yourself again. He's off on our left side. The offense is right, and he's going to get chipped by the running back. And then it's the pad level underneath, and the closing speed, I'm not fast forwarding that. We'll let it run in full speed a couple of times so you can see it. The closing speed, to me, it almost looks blurry. There is a level of athleticism. Well, he sacked Josh Allen twice. I mean, so how many guys can say that they did that? How many guys bounce off of Josh Allen in this situation? James Houston IV did not. Incredible draft pick for the Lions. Does it say a lot that they didn't have him playing early in the year? Well, yeah, I guess it does. But 5 sacks in 4 games, they saw something on film to draft him. They saw something to make him active. This is one of my favorite plays. I know that he's unblocked, and so there are some people who would say, well, this is easy, coach. Here's why I like it. You've got you got one pre-snap and one post-snap motion coming at him. So you've got Wilson in motion, pre-snap, and then once the ball is snapped, again, he's unblocked here, but you have a second guy, Berrios, going out into the flats. Normally that creates some confusion in that edge rusher in terms of, do I chip him? Is it going to be split zone? What do I do? James Houston, to me, he hesitates slightly there. To me, he seems to be freed up to go ahead and rush the passer. I don't know that it's that simple in terms of their scheme, but they seem to be letting James Houston attack, and I'm all for it. I'm sure as Lions fans, you guys are too if you're listening this long. Look, I don't pretend to have watched every single snap that he has played on defense, but I watched enough after 2 weeks to know that there's a lot of ability there, and this is incredible value for a 6th-round pick. I do believe, and somebody educate me in the comments section, that they did leave him at risk of being taken off the practice squad, I think after 1 week or maybe 2. But you can see there's very little hesitation here. 2 sets of motion, 1 pre-snap, 1 post-snap coming at him. And athletically, like I said, tackling Josh Allen twice, there doesn't seem to be a quarterback that he can't handle. There has been some sacks in late quarter or late half or late game situations where it's obviously a passing situation. He's violent. And this is not just flashy, and it's not just gutsy to use this move here, but it's incredibly well timed with the hand swipe. And first of all, it's a violent finish on Trevor Lawrence. Watch the timing of the hand swipe here. That is unique in the attempt of the move. It's unique also in the application because of how well timed the finish is here on the tackle's hand. And then again, allows him to dip low and get around the tackle. I haven't seen bull rushes. I haven't seen inside spin moves. I haven't seen a number of other complementary moves, I'm not going to lie to you. So maybe there's a point at which NFL tackles will adjust to James Houston IV. Then I offer to you that he might have to advance his moves. It's also possible there's 3 or 4 examples of him using inside moves, and I just don't have them on this film. That's possible. The ones that have been successful in terms of quarterback hits, like this one, or pressures, or sacks, the ones that have been successful have generally been outside rushes that really threaten these tackles on the edge. But that's what you want anyway. You want to force those guys to set or overset in some cases to allow themselves to stay in position to stop the edge rush, so then your counter moves, which may not be as effective, can still win. Look at the hand swat. I don't know what happened there at Jackson State. I don't know what happened at Florida. All I know is he was incredibly productive at Jackson State. And if you were to listen to a guy like Deion Sanders talk last year, after not many teams showed up to, I think, their pro day, you kind of understood that maybe he was talking about a guy like James Houston IV. There was probably other guys as well. Not only is he producing in terms of edge rushes, 5 sacks in 4 games, 8 quarterback hits outside of those 5 sacks, he's also playing special teams and had an impact. That same game against the Bills where he had 2 sacks, I think a forced fumble, or maybe I'm remembering this. He also had this fumble recovery on punt return, which I think was pretty important. And you've probably lost track of him. So here he is right here as the ball was being returned to the near sideline. He's not done playing football. He keeps playing football and gets a fumble recovery. So we'll let it run back one more time. Again, this is Houston here. You may not be as impressed by this play as I am, and that's okay. Some people value special teams a little bit more than others. He's lost his man, and then he's tried to recover back towards the football to look for someone to block. No one shows. Stays with it, gets a fumble recovery. You may not be as impressed by that special teams play, but you will be by this one. He's the number 1 here last week against the Jets on the kickoff. So normally your number 1 is lined up, outside of the goalposts or, outside of the hash. And you're responsible for a particular rush lane depending on, where the ball is kicked to one side or the other. Watch the violence that he plays with. He is an absolute hunter. Whether he's on defense, whether he's on kickoff team. You may have lost track of him. We'll bring it back here in a moment. All right, so here's Houston, and he's going to take on this guy who's set up outside the hash. The shed, violent, staying square though. Look at after contact. That's the thing I noticed about him when he's rushing the passer, is that the contact with the tackles doesn't seem to deter him. He's able to stay in good posture, and he did the same thing here. He's able to stay square. He's a violent football player. I hope that the level of motivation he has is what stays with him the whole year, because at this rate, he may end up with more sacks than Aiden Hutchinson. He may end up with more sacks than every rookie edge rusher in the NFL, which is crazy. This is, I think, the most clear example of his ability to play with a low pad level. He's already won multiple times on the outside in this game. He essentially makes the left tackle whiff. I don't know. I'm sure that he did make contact with the upper portion of James Houston's back, but it wasn't much. No hand swipe, just making his left shoulder disappear right here. Making his left shoulder disappear, essentially pulling a Houdini on the left tackle. He's a great prospect. These are things that are repeatable. It's not like this is going to expire. As long as there are complementary moves there or being built in, they've got a great duo already between Hutchinson and James Houston IV. I mean, I'll go out on a limb and say it now. He may not get another sack this year. Who the hell knows? This guy can play in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. Is he as good against the run at his weight? Well, maybe not. He certainly looks like a 3-4 outside linebacker in a base structure. But against 11 personnel, which you're seeing increasingly more in the NFL, there's no reason why he can't be your every down guy out on the edge. Will teams try to game plan and run against him some? Sure. It looks like he's an athletic mismatch in terms of speed against, well, every tackle that he's faced so far, including the one for the Bills. And then the closing speed again. Getting chipped by the running back. Allen is moving out of the pocket to his right. How many times have you seen Josh Allen get tackled clean twice by the same guy in the same game? It just doesn't seem to happen. He seems to be able to escape these. Watch Houston take on the running back and keep on his path. So he's already dislodged the running back of his route and then stayed true to his path as well. Sky's the limit. You know, are the Lions going to be able to keep this up? They certainly have 3 winnable games to finish out the schedule. Theoretically, they could finish 10-7. I don't know about you. I would love to see James Houston IV continue this tear. With this, some of these moves are unorthodox, but they are working. If you're a Lions fan and you've watched this long, let me know how excited you guys are about. Well, I'm sure that you're excited about your team, and you should be, because they have a lot of potential. Probably one of the best drafts that went underrated, including, by someone like myself. I talked about the Jets draft, the Giants. I'm talking about immediately after the draft process. Even the Texans I talked about. I did not have any idea that the Lions draft was going to be this good from top to bottom, nor did I have any idea that it would be the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks draft was talked about more than the Lions clearly earlier in the season because the Seahawks were winning games and Tariq Woolen was having such an unbelievable impact. At this point, though, you would have to include the Lions in any discussion of who hit the biggest grand slam in the draft, and James Houston IV is the biggest part of that. If you guys were able to watch the video this long, let me know what you think in the comment section. I really have a soft spot for players who kind of come out of nowhere, and on one level, on the national football scene, James Houston IV would appear to be one of those guys. I offer to you that was fake. James Houston IV has always been a premier talent. When you're a full scholarship guy to the SEC and you play 4 years there, I think it was 4 years there, then you have premier talent. And then to do what he did with Jackson State, I think he had 24.5 tackles for loss and I think 16 sacks, but I could be wrong there. I know that the talent level he was playing against was obviously different than the SEC, but there is there's clear evidence of high-level talent in James Houston IV, and I don't see an end to this, at least right now, until people start blocking him differently. You can see even when he's been chipped a couple of times, he's been able to create pressure, get quarterback hits, or even a sack, as in the next to last play I showed you against the Bills and Josh Allen. This is one of the most fun videos I had to make because trying to draw attention to a guy who's exploding on the NFL scene, and seemingly there's not been much discussion of, at least to my knowledge. Appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and then sharing a link to this video on social media to help the video get more reach.